In a world full of distractions, there is one big question on every dog owner's lips.
How do I become more than just the person holding the other end of the leash?
We all get dogs with a dream in mind, a vision of the future. And if right now your everyday reality isn't quite that picture you had in mind, you are in the right place.
It really doesn't have to be this way.
You absolutely can and will be more to your dog than just the person who gets in between them and the world.
The key is you need to be more sexy.
More sexy than the neighbourhood cat.
More sexy than the jogger in the park.
More sexy than that half-eaten hamburger they just found on the floor.
And yes, even more sexy than the dog across the road.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Lauren.
Together we're Absolute Dogs.
And you're listening to the Sexier Than a Squirrel podcast. So welcome to the Sexier Than a Squirrel podcast, the podcast that gives you real life training results. And today I'm so lucky because, again, I'm joined by the amazing Kaz. Now, she is a police officer in the Warwickshire area. Am I right?
Yes.
Good.
You got it right.
I've been told I must get the right areas, and I think I'm right, but my geography is appalling. So you're Warwickshire, and actually you're a really brilliant police dog handler. And what I love about what you do is your passion in it and your love of dogs. And I want to share a bit more of it. We had such a fun time the first time we sit and chatted it through that I just had, well, there were too many questions, weren't there, for one.
we hardly touched on it.
We could have been there a whole day, we figured. So you know what? Tell me, let's start straight off. I know that so many of the listeners are going to want to check in on this and they're going to want to hone in on it. And this really is kind of where we can dive in a little bit deeper. Tell me why a dog's needed. Like, why is a dog needed? And I've obviously watched the explosives team this week, and I've been watching the drugs team working, and I've been watching some of the GP dogs. Why are dogs needed? Like, why do they? And I listened to one of the handlers say, the thing is, sometimes a dog can be like the power of 10, 15 of us. And he's like, it makes him like quite, he was really quite emotional about it. He's like, the dogs are so important. And I can see that, and I know you know that, but tell everybody else about that.
Yeah, I mean, both types of dogs, both your general purpose and your search dogs are important. In terms of, say, search dog, my dog, or I say my dog, but the police dog can search a car within a fraction of the time that it takes police officers to search the car. So at the side of a road where a car's been stopped and they want it searching to make sure there's no drugs in it in the middle of the night, pop the dog in, 10 minutes, car's searched. If there's nothing there, great. If there is, the dog found it. You ask that for a team of police officers to do that in the dark at the side of the road. It's to looking at least 4 of them, 40 minutes, an hour to search the same.
It's manpower.
A lot of it is manpower. And also, say, example, for a car, some of the concealments that people put in cars these days are very sophisticated, which, unless you actually physically pull the car apart, you would never find.
I mean, I was literally blown away by the fact that one of the dogs that we were chatting to, well, there's me chatting to a dog, one of the owners and the handlers and the dogs, the team, I suppose, that we were chatting to, they were like saying they'd like found like $250,000 in a concealment in a car that you really would have had to have got like the fire brigade to get into. It wasn't like, It is very sophisticated. You're right, Kaz.
You're dealing on some of it, not all the time, but speaking with the dog side of it, you're dealing with what we call organised crime groups. So organised criminals, that's what they do professionally. That's what they do all the time. So they become very sophisticated and very good at what they do. And if that's moving drugs around or money about, they're very good at it. So therefore they don't want to get caught. They don't want to lose their drugs or cash or firearms or whatever it is that they're trying to move. Yeah, basically. So therefore they have to be very good. So they will make things that are very difficult to find. So, while with a dog, it's going on scent. It's not going on what it can physically see or feel. It's going on scent. So if something is hidden, it's still going to smell. So the dog can say. So and you've got to be at that point very committed, or not committed, maybe that way, but with your dog, your bond and your trust with each other. Well, my dog's telling you it's there, so therefore I know my dog's there. The dog doesn't have the capacity to lie, in the sense of, well, he's not going to say, oh, I just want my ball.
Dog doesn't have an agenda.
So, yeah, I'll just pretend it's there because I want my ball. It doesn't think like that. It's there, so I get my ball. It thinks that's how it's going to think. So that's why with a dog like that, it's telling you it's there. So it's picking up the odour.
I love it. And I really believe it. I really believe that dogs really are needed. And after watching them this week and after watching the amazing work they do, dogs really are needed. Now, if you haven't already listened to our past episode where we have literally done a big interview with Kaz as a handler, I want you to check that one out too. Not necessarily right now, but you need to check that out right too, because some of this is going to grow on that. So I know that we're going to grow on this. So tell me a little bit about where the dogs that you guys in the police, where they come from. So where are the dogs sourced from? How do they come to you? How do they end up in your training program? Because I've seen a whole host of different dogs and they definitely didn't all come from the same place.
Yeah, there's several ways we come across dogs. There's what we call breed schemes. So some of the police forces, like West Midlands Police, they have their own breed scheme. So they breed their own dogs specifically to become police dogs. So that's one way that they come in. And some of those dogs, they won't all stay with West Midlands Police. Some of them will be sold on to other police forces. The other way they come into is that we'll go to private breeders and go and get puppies from a private breeder and bring them on for ourselves for 12 months and bring them up the way we want to see, and hopefully they'll then become police dogs. And then the final way really they come into us is as what we call gift dogs. So
I watched one of the little gift dogs actually this week, a little gold, busy Cocker Spaniel.
Yeah.
And he was a busy dog. And basically, I think he'd been too much for his household, so he was a public gift.
Yeah. So exactly that. Too much in the household, too much for family pet. So there's sort of pros to
it's not the misconception of a dog who's aggressive or difficult or wants to bite people or wants to bark all day long. That was not and I think that was the thing that was really great to see. He was just really a bit too busy for a normal lifestyle. So he was gifted in that way.
Yeah,
so he was gifted in that way.
The people who've got him as a pet, he's too much for a pet. He doesn't want to be a sofa dog or a lap dog. Or they know they've got a busy working breed and they thought they could give it what it needed, and all good intentions were that it was, we'll walk it, we're going to go walking on the hills with it all the time. But actually the reality was that they couldn't. So therefore, well, actually, no, he loves his ball and we'll go and have a look at him and see if we can make a police dog. So
best thing is gifted, and this dog was amazing at doing it. So actually, what age do you think a dog shows their attributes? What age do you think they show where you start to go, oh, I think this is going to be a good dog? Like, I mean, I know when I'm working with an agility dog, Tokyo, I started to see about 6-7 months old, I was like, I really like what you're showing. And now at about a year old, I'm starting to see his body look right for it, and his mental capacity and his body come together. So and I know my sort of craft or sport or hobby or whatever you want to call it. How about in your craft?
It's different because you'll see different things at different phases. So you can almost look at a litter of puppies and just see how the puppies interact with themselves, with each other, with their environment, and you can sort of look at them and think, that one, because of where the lines have been, that one maybe has potential because he's confident, he's bold, he's maybe a little bit bossy to his little brother or sisters. There's things that you'll see there that maybe you think, oh yeah, actually he might be. And then as they develop through his puppyhood, then you'll see things that he likes or doesn't like. It's just, and then also as you develop them with puppies and see them grow up, it's not necessarily about a dog being scared of something or not liking something. It's how he reacts to it and how he gets over that. So it could be the first time he sees a balloon or something waving in the grass, oh my God, the world's going to end. But actually, within a couple of minutes or however long, he's like, it's just
And actually, you touched on something that's really nice there. And the thing that you touched on is environmental sensitivity. And I think that that's something that I would certainly want to proof in an agility dog, because we're going to go to crafts, we're going to go to Olympia, we're going to go to World Championships. Well, if we get there, that's our goal. And we try really hard to manifest that and make that happen because we want to get there. Yeah. But I definitely noticed it with watching the dogs last week, that the dogs that were more environmentally sensitive, certainly it helped in some ways if they weren't too environmentally sensitive and if they were environmentally sound and proofed and happy with the world. Talk me through that a little bit from your side of things, because it was interesting to see on my side of things, and equally I bet from your side it's important.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, one of the things about being environmentally sound for us is massively important, because it's all right very much the dog being in its comfort zone and doing everything in a comfort zone, but I need for that dog then to do everything no matter where it goes. So because say we'll go with the search dogs because that's mainly what we're talking about. So a house that I go into, that dog will never have been in that house before. I don't actually know what's going to be in that house, and I need the dog to go in there and still want to search and still find what I want it to find if it's there to be found, so that the drugs or the cash or the firearms. I could go into that house, and this has happened. you'll go into the bedroom, and in the bedroom there's a gerbil in this cage, and there's a lizard in that cage, and everything. Do you know what I mean?
Tarantula, I'm gone.
Yeah. underneath
Bye.
the bed there's half a packet of Wotsits, and there's this and there's that.
Yeah.
And there's things that maybe the dog has never ever seen before. Well, I need.
You tell me you've not got what sits under your bed, Kaz.
Surprisingly enough, no.
Time snack.
So I need the dog to be able to go in there. Yes, maybe have a quick look at them, but not be fazed by the fact that they're there. So
sort of work through them.
Yes.
Almost they're none of their business. Carry on.
Whatever.
It's none of your business.
Yeah. All I'm interested in is actually getting my ball by finding.
I want my substance. I want my thing.
Yeah, because that finding what I get gets me my ball. And that's all I'm interested in.
So you need them almost to be, yes, it's there, but carry on anyway.
Yeah.
So keep calm and carry on almost as
investigate it, have a look, but actually just carry on. It's not
what your next job is.
because that's. Yeah, I want you to be able to investigate it, not avoid it.
And how do you, with young dogs, start to train environmental soundness or environmental stability, I suppose?
Yeah, I mean, it's just if you've got a young dog like a puppy that's been brought on,
and you've obviously recently been through this journey with Pocker.
Yes, if you've had it's about taking it places, as many places as possible. But every time you take it somewhere, it's a positive experience. So if you find that the dog's maybe not confident in an office environment, then you go into, first of all, a smaller office with less in it to build it up slowly, rather than go, oh, tough luck, we're going to go to lots of busy offices.
I love what you were saying to me with Pocker was actually she's just been in the car with you the whole time. So actually things like sirens and stuff are just part of her life. Yeah. She's always had them.
She knows that's just normal. I go in the car, I can have a little rest and snooze, because that's where I go and what have you. But like going into an office, so I'll go into an office and we'll just go and play. That's it. Not asking to do anything. I'm just going to go in there and we'll just either play games. Maybe roll a bit of sausage across the floor. You can go chase and eat, or we'll play with a toy. Or
so quite low pressure.
Yeah,
fun.
Starts off so everything is positive and there's no negative experiences with things. And if there is negative experience, you deal with it and build it back up rather than just leaving it or try and force the dog into a situation where you flood it with lots at once. You make it positive as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think it sounds absolutely spot on. So what about breeds? Like, talk me through breeds. What sort of your typical breeds that you might work with when you're selecting?
Yeah, so typically in the search side of things, it's your Springers, it's your Cockers, it's your Labradors. That doesn't mean to say that other dog breeds aren't used. There are a couple of Staffies. There's one Gloucestershire, I've got a Staffy. I think Staffordshire have actually got a Staffy
which
as well.
They've got to have, haven't they? And then I saw actually last week working a really lovely pointer called Jake.
Yes.
So Jake was an amazing short-haired pointer, GSP, and absolutely lovely dog, and yet not your typical. You haven't seen a lot of him.
No, it's not saying that. I mean, I think I know Westminster for a while had an Irish Water Spaniel doing it. So there's no saying, oh, it's got to be a Springer, oh, it's got to be a Cocker, oh, it's got. No, it's a dog that's actually can do the role.
Fit for job.
But yeah, so for us, it's about that wanting to work and that wanting to find the.
How about the GP dogs? Like, what breeds are we looking for in the GP dogs? So the general purpose dogs.
So they're what we call your big dogs, as we call them. So they are your German Shepherds, your Belgian Malinois, your Dutch Herders. That's not to say that other breeds aren't used. I mean, Rottweilers have been used, Dobermans have been used in the past, but we tend to come back to those three particular breeds because they're good all-rounders at everything that we want, so they're balanced enough to be able to track and find your little old lady that's gone missing and wandered off from the care home. But then the next moment, the next job you've got is a violent crowd of people outside a pub that you want dispersed and getting rid of, so they can then switch from one to the other. So they've almost got an on-off switch. Which
is lovely.
Yeah.
But again, I think that's the one that all the listeners are dreaming of, the on-off switch. That on-off switch that we haven't yet found. But it's one of those ones that is powerful, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I agree. Sometimes it's naturally a dog. So actually explain to me, so I'm a novice handler, let's say, coming in on this, and I know we've had these conversations, and this I found fascinating. I suppose last week when I was running around with drugs in sort of the middle of, and this was with the police, not without, and I was in the sort of train stations and things like that. How about you've got a large cash find? How does your dog know the difference between a cash find in a vehicle or looking for like cash in someone's pocket? Like, what does that? How does your dog get trained to do that? Because this was one of my questions. I was like, well, how about I don't know, Mr. Jones has got £20 in his pocket, but he's actually got 100 K in his boot.
In relation to cash, you'll find that a lot of the passive dogs aren't trained to find cash as well, because the fact that, like you say, for that very purpose that people have cash in their pockets naturally. So you don't want the dog stopping everyone.
Ball here.
Because everyone's got cash in their pockets, although less so these days with contactless. But so you tend to find that your passive dogs that do passive and proactive don't tend to be put on cash just for that very reason. However, in terms of amounts of cash, so like if you had a wallet, say, on the side in a car and it's only got a £5 in, the dog will still find that as he would find £1,000 hidden in the car, because it's given off, although it's a smaller scent picture, it's still giving off the same scent. It's just the amount of smell it's giving off. That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, completely makes sense.
So that's why they can find a small amount and a large amount just by the amount it gives smell-wise it gives off.
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. And what are your favourite types of searches to do? Like, what would be your, if you're like, oh, this is my favourite type of search, what's your favourite type of search? Give me a scenario.
When you're pretty sure you're going to find something. Because obviously a lot of the ones we go to, and it can be a case of you're not 100% sure that there's going to be anything in there, because it's just, that's how it is. You think there's going to be, but there's not necessarily very good intelligence that it's going to be stuff there, but there's possibility. But sometimes you go to stuff and it's almost, it's definitely going to be here.
You know it. You know it.
So you make it,
Gwen's going wild. How about something you find fascinating in your role? So something you found fascinating in the past, or something you find fascinating right now? Like, I have to say, I mean, I rarely take enough time out to be able to go and sit in someone else's job. I was fascinated the last few days. I was literally, normally I'm so busy on my phone and there's so many people to go back to, nothing got done. When I went through with one of the ladies I work with, she was like, what, did you get this done? Did you get this done? I was like, I did nothing. I was like, Kelly, I did nothing. All I did was indulge myself in dogs for a few days, and it was amazing. What and I was fascinated by everything. What fascinates you working with the dogs that you work with, or doing what you do?
I find the most fascinating thing is training the young dogs, for them to learn that from the very small building blocks that you're putting at the bottom to getting up to the end result. So at the minute, when you initially start out with your search dog, it's just literally rolling the ball so it hides behind some grass and it finds that, and then to move that on to eventually get to the point where you set the dog up to search, it goes on search and bang, there's your hide, and then getting it's those little building blocks as you go along.
I love it.
And then also when you watch a dog work and you can see it working, and it's keen to work and it's happy working, and that gets, I love it. Yeah, no, it's just what it's hard to describe.
No, I think everybody out there who's a dog lover and a listener, I think they're going to completely know that feeling. Like for me, I'm already really excited because I know we're going to train dogs in a bit. So I'm like, oh, I can't wait to show you, and I know you can't wait to show us as well. So what behaviour do you train a dog to actually tell you there's something there? And I know you call that an indication.
Yeah.
So what do you teach a dog to do? Does the dog get taught to down or sit or stand or nudge it or grab it or back off it? Or because I know when I was chatting to some of the guys this week that actually there's some specific things you're looking for.
Yeah. So ultimately, we look for what we call a passive freeze indication. So the dog finds it, wherever it is, it freezes with it probably as close as it knows it can get to it and stays there like a statue, basically. That's the ideal. It doesn't matter if the dog's in a sit, a down, whatever. If the dog prefers to sit and stare, fine. That's whatever. What we don't want to have happen is the dog to interfere with what we call the hide. So whatever it is it's found.
You mean like grab it and shred it?
Yeah, grab either for
nudge it.
For the explode dogs, you don't want it nudging it because if it's a bomb, we don't want it going off.
No,
so
and I did actually chat to them and ask them, and they said it was as simple as like a rub could actually trigger it off. Yeah, so it's a big thing.
Because if the bomb's set up as what they call a tilt type switch, which is what gets it to activate. Yeah. If the dog knocks it, the whole lot's going up. Well,
So actually, they were saying that they never want a dog to be paws on or the dog. They were showing me. And I love this, and I know you were talking about the same thing. They actually want the dog to indicate by backing off a little almost, and to still fix stare, but not to come forward and nudge or push.
Yeah. No interference. I mean, they can be close. For me, as a drugs dog, it's not so bad if the dog is close.
Yeah.
The more with the Explo, you maybe want that little bit of a back off, because it also prevents the dog maybe getting a little bit frustrated because it's not getting its reward quite quick enough at that time. So therefore, that temptation just to nudge it, because once you've started that behaviour, it's then a behaviour then got to correct rather than. Well, with a drugs dog, if it happened to nudge it, it's
not so. The end result isn't.
But the reason I don't want my drugs dog getting hold of it is, again, I don't want them taking a mouthful of cocaine or
No.
because of the implications then are massive. So so it's a case of no, just freeze and look.
that was great to notice, because I think years ago we actually did have our dogs pushier, whereas actually they want a real, it was very, very nice to see. It was very controlled. So actually that indication is very calm, still. There's no manicness about it. It's very much clear indication.
I think that's come about quite a bit, because my first drugs dog that I had was what we call a rehandle. So it was somebody else's dog first, and then I then took it on. And he was a Labrador, and he was taught what we call a scratch indication. So he'd find it and he would dig, which for drugs, again, not the biggest issue. However, if something can say had been at a location and removed, there could be residual scent there. So the scent still hanging about on whatever it was next to. So he could then start digging at that, but there's nothing, and cause damage, which people then complain, which you don't want, especially if there's nothing there in the first place. And also, again, you don't want him trashing the hide.
I have to say, one of the funniest things, the dogs that was there in the week was one of the dogs that literally, his damage record was quite high. Like, he wants to get on things, smash things, move things. He's a big Springer boy.
Yeah.
And he just enjoyed it. And they were like, yeah, that's something they have to be careful of. So, like, mitigate damage. You don't really want additional damage.
No, ideally not. If it happens, it happens. And you admit that it's happened. You don't try and hide it or push under it. Literally, you just say, sorry, my dog's done this or whatever. So, so talking about, so that's why with the hides, and what's happened over the years, particularly with the drugs, with the insecticide, is there's clickers come more into play.
Yeah, and everyone had a clicker, and I thought that was great. Every single handler had a clicker. Every instructor had a clicker. Previously,
what used to be was the dog would get on the hide and you would almost throw the tennis ball in.
Yeah.
So the accuracy had to be spot on with your tennis ball throwing, while the clicker just marks the behaviour.
And also I love that actually you could just give the clicker to the instructor, and then you really only rely on the instructor to click right, not any novice handler or new handler to it.
To get it right. And also with the clicker as well, the clicker's the same every single time. Well, it's a distinctive sound, isn't it? So rather than saying giving a command like yes, like some people like to use, that can change, because if you're emotional for some reason, how you say the word yes can change. Well, click's just the same day in,
I was
day
really
out.
impressed that all of the instructors were all clicker based. So tell me your favourite search to do. So I don't know whether you're outside doing a big open search, and I know you want the one that you win at, but if you're doing a big open search, say you're searching outside, or you're doing little buildings, or you're doing houses, or you're doing offices, like what's your favourite? If you were given something, like I loved being in the middle of like an RAF centre, like that was incredible, because you're in you're in the sort of mess bit, and you're in the it was cool to be in that sort of building. Whereas what would your favourite be?
I like searching cars.
Searches.
Cars. Just because I don't know what it is about cars. I'm not looking outside. It's all right, but I'm not that bothered. But cars, I could do.
Give
cars.
You a car. Give Kaz a car. That's her favourite thing she wants to do.
Just because it's quite a compact area, and it's amazing. I just like doing cars.
Like a car?
Yeah.
Any type of car, or just any old car?
Cars.
So tell me what sort of odours that you might start on, or people might call them scents, or what scents are you talking on? I mean, I've seen that you brought this safe along with you.
The safe.
There's a safe with a big old key.
The key is obviously already in the safe. Okay, when we train the drugs dogs, they are trained on the substances that we want them to find. So
you're talking that you've got drugs
so
on you,
in the
Kaz?
safe is drugs. Yes, because obviously
drugs.
They need to know
in the house.
In the house. So in here, I'll just get a couple.
In the house, we have drugs.
Yeah. So let's get two of them out. For
very
now.
labelled pots that look very, very official.
So these pots, or whatever's in them, this one's the heroin kit. So it's got a 5 gram in here, a 3 gram.
Can you let me know how you've got hold of this heroin?
Right. This has come direct from
just to make sure everyone's happy with this.
Yeah, the forensic lab. So it is from the lab, so it's pure, so we know it is heroin. We're not putting something
so you're
in
testing there. So that means you know with your dogs that you're working on testing them against exactly the substance that you're going to be using.
Don't get me wrong, when they get out on the streets, they will never be finding pure stuff, because the dealers themselves have cut it. Like heroin particularly gets cut mainly with
like a dog. This is like a dog lesson and a drugs lesson.
Yeah, the heroin in particular tends to be cut with brick dust, because it's a similar type of colour.
Crazy.
So when you have a deal of say maybe heroin that they're using, the percentage of actual heroin within that deal will be very low, probably 10-15% most.
Crazy.
The rest is just rubbish that the dealers have put in to bulk it out, to put the weight up, to make money basically. So when the dogs are trained, they obviously are trained, they will still find, because it's still got the heroin in there, so when they get out there, it's still got some heroin in it. So, but we train on the substance itself, because that's what we want them to do, or to recognise. So hence the reason why we get them from the labs. And it just becomes, for the dogs, scent recognition.
Yeah,
so,
no, for sure. And then, so you've got heroin on the left.
Yeah, cocaine's... Well, yeah, it's your left, isn't it?
Yeah, my left, sorry, my
that
left.
confused me
You're
there.
like, which way?
Left. So cocaine and heroin, and then the other ones we have here is...
Safely locked under key.
Yeah, amphetamine.
Yep.
Cocaine. And I'm thinking this one is the ecstasy. Or
Gosh, he's got a right concoction.
Yeah. These are just the main drugs, obviously, that we tend
So these are what Pocker would be trained on.
Yeah. Some of the dogs are also trained on cannabis.
Yeah, so explain to me why you wouldn't you wouldn't necessarily have trained your dog on cannabis.
Right, we've taken a decision at the moment in Warwickshire to give it a bit of a trial, is to not put them on cannabis, because to get, without going into too much detail, to get a conviction for possession with intent to supply with cannabis, you need an awful lot of cannabis.
Which an officer's going to be able to find.
You'd hope so. So you don't necessarily need a dog to find that, but you do tend to find that a lot of people maybe running drugs about maybe smoke a bit of cannabis, so there's cannabis within the car.
Yeah.
So therefore it could maybe makes it more difficult, not impossible, but more difficult for the dogs then to work through that cannabis to then find what the
And they're
class
coming
A.
together anyway, so actually let's train them this, and then Pocker really knows her job.
Yes, so it's not saying that you could, I mean, still most forces I think still do train on cannabis, and other forces I know train, there's other drugs on there like what they call MCAT and Mamba, which is spice, which is...
So this is a whole new lesson for Lauren on the Sex in the Square podcast.
but they're almost regional things.
Yeah.
Certain forces have problems with them. Well, we at the moment, say Touchwood, haven't got, that I'm aware of, a huge issue that we need to start putting our dogs on that substance to make them recognise it so that they can find it.
So what you're using are the substances that you're really looking for and you're training her on
those substances.
So that's great to know. So it's great to know that you actually work on those. So if I wanted to start with, I don't know, maybe training I love that you've locked it. It's under lock and key. It's away. Look at Officer Kaz gone. So if I wanted to train my dog, not necessarily on these scents, because those aren't scents I'm going to easily want to be working with. At the same time, I've got a dog and she loves a ball or she loves some food. How am I going to start with her? What am I going to do?
Right, first of all, I would want to make sure that she knows how to search, as daft as that sounds, because just because she likes a ball or whatever, not all dogs learn to search. So the easiest way to start is just by throwing the ball into the long grass. Can she find it if it goes in long grass? Then after that, what I would tend to do is just gently hold onto her collar, throw the ball into the long grass, just leave it a moment, then let her go and find it. Because can she actually find that ball? Because that's her ball. So that's the beginnings, really.
Yeah.
I want her to be able to...
Using her nose.
Yeah, use her nose, not her eyes. Once she's done that, then we'll start maybe putting it so that she doesn't see, just pretending... We've already thrown the ball out and hidden it, then we just pretend to throw the ball out. And then at that point, you want to start maybe putting a little command in, so like find it, or whatever you want to use. It doesn't matter what words you use, but find it. So every time you set her up to go find the ball, it's the same command. So once we've got that, we then not even pretend to throw it out, we just sit her up and tell her find it. So we're slowly putting the building blocks in, but just at this stage, just with the ball or whatever toy it is, it doesn't matter what toy. So once we've then done that, we can maybe move it somewhere else, not to the same point. Will she still find it there? So, but if you move somewhere else, it might be sometimes okay, the idea just to pretend to throw it again, just so she realises that's what the game is.
Yeah.
Does that all make sense so far?
Absolutely. I think they're going to love it. Listeners are going to be like, whoa, can't wait.
And then maybe move it into, so that she doesn't, like I say, then we put it out somewhere, you just bring her out, sit her up, go find it. And it could be in a yard area, and this is all outside at the minute, but you could then start to do it in the house, or, you know, different environments, wherever. So, basic, but the same startup is always the same. So whether you sit them, get them into the down, but the same command, set them off to go find the ball. Once we know the dog will search and is happy searching and looking for its ball, we then got to start to think, well, what do we want it to find? And you can get your dog to find anything. As daft as that sounds, it's only about scent recognition. So if you want a dog that finds mobile phones, we'll train it to find mobile phones. If you want a dog to find clove oil, we'll use clove oil as the scent. So it doesn't matter what you want it to. It doesn't have to be drugs. It can be tobacco. It can be any. It doesn't matter, just as long as it is an individual.
And what I was
scent.
loving was watching the tiny, tiny, tiny amounts of certain toys that were being used in training. Like, that was incredible. I mean, you're talking like a millimetre of toy.
Yeah, so that's on a dog that we're teaching then to... right, okay. I've kind of jumped the gun a little bit.
Sorry.
It's okay, I'll bring this up. So what they've done there is made it more difficult to find the toy. So rather than it being the whole toy, if it's a tennis ball particularly, you cut the tennis ball up, make it smaller pieces. So it's having to then, the dog having to start to focus a lot more to find that toy or that article. And then it then gets another toy in, and it doesn't keep that little tiny bit. But it's a long process to do that. But then to introduce the scent in, and this is how I always find clicker easies, you put, say, a scent in like a pot. Like we tend to use these little pots that are just got little holes in the top. So whatever it is goes in there. And the first time the dog puts its nose on there, it'll have no understanding of this game at this stage. It gets the click and it gets its ball or whatever. And after several repetitions of putting its nose on those holes, it'll start to realise that smell gives me my ball. So once we've done that a few times, or a bit of food, it doesn't have to be a toy, it depends on what the dog works for. I know they've got the labels on. We can put 2 pots out. So it's got to put its, obviously a bit spaced apart. So the dog then puts its nose on the one that's got the stuff on, and as soon as its nose touches that one, click, and it gets its toy or food or whatever. So it starts to associate that smell with getting a reward. Whatever that reward is, it doesn't matter. And then obviously we know it'll search. So then we then introduce the bit we've been doing with the search with the ball, but this time we don't put the ball out, we put the smell out. So it then learns that actually, if I go to that, I can then...
And what I love with Poco, she's got this really, really beautiful freeze. How about that? Because I can imagine some of the spaniels that I work with kind of doing this frantic pawing and throwing.
There's a few ways you can do that to work out to get the freeze. Is in the sense that these have got magnets on the bottom, so they're quite firm, but you can either help shape the behaviour, so you encourage the dog. So if it goes to scratch at it, just a little or no, whatever you want to do to stop that behaviour. Or if you can put this somewhere where it can't do anything, so it's stuck on there like that, just leave it. Leave the dog to work it out for itself. And the moment it freezes, it gets the click.
And that's what I loved watching when I was watching in the week, was actually they kind of, to a degree, they weren't using any sort of aversives or stopping. Actually, a lot of the time they were just that pause, clicking, bang, the toy was in there, and their timing was very, very good. I was very, very impressed. But the timing was spot on. With
the time, that's how clicker makes life easier, definitely. Because you can get it. You haven't got to lob the ball in at the right point. The click's so easy. It always takes that Photoshop of that behaviour.
That beautiful freeze forwards, and they really. And then what I loved seeing was at the next stages, they really were, especially with the explosives dogs, they were looking for like really elongated. Yeah, so their duration was quite a long time.
So all you do, I mean, you wouldn't expect a dog to come in and freeze and stay there for 30 seconds before you click. It is initially really, really quick, and then it's very slowly building up
duration. And I could see the purpose of that, because actually they might not, specifically with the explosives, they might not want to get in too close. They might not even be in the same position. The dog would be there waiting, indicating, not running back and forward, actually holding on a spot and indicating, whilst they were then walking backwards and then calling the dog out of that on their clear exit. As much as my limited understanding. And also, because the click, the dog understands that the click's going to mean it gets the ball. The ball doesn't have to be lobbed in at the hide, so therefore it is an explosive hide. The dog, you're not going to interfere with that hide. And also, the dog, because it hears the click, it's expecting the ball, so it will come away from the hide and come back to the handler. So it's drawing the dog, I've got my ball, happy days, out we go. And it's safe. So that's another reason why the click works so well with that. It was really nice to watch. Like, it was really, really, really cool to watch. How about a dog that you need to build a bit more desire in, like, or you need to build a bit more oomph in, or maybe a dog that, I was watching a dog in the week that maybe just, I think he would quit quite easily. How would you go about that? Okay, so it's about being ever so careful how you build up that dog. So if it's a dog you think, I'm not too sure, you keep it very short and lots of wins, so you wouldn't expect it to search for half an hour before it got its reward. You'd make it literally a 2-minute search to begin with,
oh, got my reward. Maybe next time it's a 2.5 minute search. So you build it up very slowly, then drop back down to a 2 minute search. So it makes it fun and keeps it fun all the time.
Yeah, so not over-facing.
Yeah, and sometimes it comes down to just by the handler being a bit more active. So if I'm searching, say, with a dog that's a little bit flat and I've got about enough here, my big goes, come on then, let's go, getting all silly and excited. Oh, okay then, yeah, it's good
so
game.
Keeping the energy.
Yeah, it's keeping that energy level up.
Do some dogs not make it as a police dog?
Yeah, it's hard because sometimes if they've been come through the breed sort of side and we've picked the right puppy and all the rest of it, then everything, in theory, fingers crossed, should work out fine. But having said that, there's no guarantees. So
I was talking to a brilliant handler last week, and the dog was fantastic, and yet its health had failed at about 2 years old. That was really depressing. And he'd gone lame, and they found out he had arthritis, and quite serious arthritis all down his back. And so actually, that was not an operational dog. He would never be operational. And that would be unfair to expect that dog to keep working in that sort of. And it's such a shame because at the same time, be trained. So, what other scenarios would exclude a dog from being licensed? Okay, so it could be a case of the fact that the dog just didn't want to search. You can't force it to search. We've said all the way along, it's a game. They've got to want to do it and love doing it and enjoy it. It is a game. There's a game for that. Yes, so there's got to be a game involved. So if that dog doesn't like that game, then no, you can't make it do it. Can't make it do it. It could be a case that the other reasons, distractions. Some dogs just will not work through distractions. Like they don't like. It could be food, it could be anything, but they will not. Will go under and eat those Wotsits? Yeah. My Labrador, my first dog, would have eaten all the Wotsits before he searched. Too funny. And then how about dogs that environmentally aren't sound? Well, that comes same thing. Same sort of thing, really. So if you went into a new building and every time you went into a new building, the dog went, I don't like this, or whatever, then it's never going to want to search. And one of the things that I actually, I was working with the security team a couple of years ago, and they asked one of my dogs to search in the dark. And interestingly, she was worried about searching in a dark bathroom. It was a toilet sort of bathroom, public bathroom, and it was pitch black. And we had a torch on, and she wasn't sure. She did it the second time, but the first time she definitely did that like back off and the hackly sort of buff. Yeah, like wasn't sure why she was going in there. So again, those sorts of environmental situations. Slippy floors was another one. Yeah, that was a good, interesting one this week actually. Yeah, slippy floors particularly because to a dog, a slippy floor can almost look like water. Yeah. Because of the way the light reflects off it. So therefore it's like, well, I ain't going on. And you'll see them like looking like Bambi on ice. Yeah. But there's ways to overcome that. Sometimes just by putting boots on them And how about then GP dogs? What might they fail on? So general purpose dogs, your dogs that maybe bring people down, or why would they fail? There can be similar sort of things. Again, environmentally, we have known dogs that don't. You do your course, your initial course, and then you get towards the end of the course, and before they go out, they do a night shift or a late shift to make sure they're. Don't like the dark. Well, unfortunately, most of your work's going to be in the dark. Yeah. So that can make them. They're just sometimes they're not confident enough, they're not brave enough, because we do with the GP dogs, when they get older and they start doing the bite work, obviously some of the people they're going to meet aren't going to be very nice. Yeah. So you've got to put a little bit of pressure on them in the bite scenario to make sure they're not going to, thanks very much, see you later, Mum, I'm off. Yeah, when he's he had the dog on the bite sleeve yesterday and he's going, rah, 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 and saying many nice words at the dog, and he's starting to turn and face the dog, because that is what sometimes is going to happen, and that dog's coming in and clamping harder, if anything, because it's playing a great game, right? Yeah, and also in the real world, that dog's biting their arm, it's gonna hurt. Yeah, I know they've done something wrong and they're naughty, they're gonna hurt. They don't want that dog on there anymore. Yeah, they're naughty people, so they are going to do things to try and get the dog off. Yeah. Whether that's scream or shout or kick or punch or whatever else. So you've got to have a dog that is going to look after itself. And also it's going to look after its handler, because it could be a case that person then turns on the handler. Mm-hmm. Well, the last thing you want, if you're out in the middle of the field in the dark, is have some bloke turn on you, and your dog's gone, I'm going back to the van, thanks, Mum. It's a bit scary. Yes, thanks very much, I'm off. So you need a brave dog. You need we say brave, but a confident dog. It's about, but at the same time, that's still that same dog. I need them to be able to come down, calm and level, and then go off and find the missing person that's my next job. Or the 5-year-old. Yeah, so it's all that same. So we ask an awful lot of the GP dogs, more so I think than the specialist dogs, because we ask them to do a lot
bigger role, much more range of tasks, and be able to go from one to another
so
quite
say this
quickly.
dog does fail, I don't know, I met a German Shepherd last week that wouldn't bite, so he wouldn't bite, so there's no way he's going to go through because he doesn't want to bite. He's got everything else, he's brilliant tracking, but doesn't want to bite, so he's going to fail. Or he doesn't even get on the course really. Where's he going to go? What's going to happen to him?
So it could go as a pet home, someone that just wants a nice German Shepherd
Sweet
pet.
German Shepherd.
Yeah, nice.
Good tracking.
Yeah, I mean, they might never track with him, but that doesn't. But as long as they're going to give him a good home and give him everything he needs, and there's no reason why he can't go as a pet. Some of them that don't make it for whatever reason, they go just as to people just to be a voice in the house, if that makes sense. So not going to bite anybody, but if anyone turns up, they're going to bark like mad.
Yeah.
So there's various levels of home. It depends on why they've failed or not made it. Say failed, that sounds awful, but not made it as a police dog as to where home they can then go.
And what
to.
I think I was most amazed with is the huge range of opportunities you have. Actually, everyone wants to help. So there are so many people that are like, we would help with this, or we would help with that, or we'd like to take on a dog who's got arthritis. That's what we want to do. So there's a lot of help. People want to look after the police.
Yes,
and their dogs.
They do, and I think a lot of people do support particularly police dogs. You know, they realise that the role that they do and how important they are, but they also, most people are like, they're more dog lovers. So.
No, and I think that was the thing that shone out really, really massively. So how often do you train your dogs? So let's go for a different. Let's think Pocker.
Well, okay, we'll come back to Pocker, because Pocker's a little bit different just because of the way she's come through. But like for the GP dogs and within Warwickshire, we do 2 training days a month. Sorry. So they have, within our 4-week period, we have 2 days that are set aside just for training. So that could sometimes be doing the GP stuff, sometimes it can be doing the drug stuff.
And what I really liked was that they were, if we're putting these dogs out in the jobs we're putting them out in, we need to make sure they're impeccable, really. And I thought that was amazing.
And also, if you go out, say I went out and did a job, say with Elsa, my GP dog, my general purpose dog, and something didn't go quite to plan, for whatever reason, she hasn't done something that she should have done, or we're being a bit, there's nothing to stop us turning around and saying, actually, we're not happy here, let's bring her in for a training day, and let's just try and, you'll never replicate it completely, but let's just replicate that to either boost her back up or see what the issue was. So with them, the training days are very important. Different forces do it in different ways. Some do it as a block week within every sort of 3 months or whatever they want to do. So there's not like you have to have 2 days a month. It's just how we do that. So but with Pocker, she's just does little bits here, there and everywhere.
And I love that, because that's kind of how we would grow our dogs. So I love that. I've seen lots of your videos, obviously, and it's amazing. No, it's amazing to see. I love it. So tell me, what would your top foundation behaviours be to share with our amazing audience, Sex and a Squirrel podcast listeners? What would your top sort of foundation behaviours for me, for you being, like for me, like I was saying earlier, retrieve, and for my dogs, I love to keep them up in drive. Like I quite like drivey dogs.
Yeah.
For you, it's going to be different to that. So what might you do as your like top few behaviours that you would top up when you can?
Your recall, I'd say, is the most important for me.
Oh, they're going to love that one. They're going to love that one.
It's always going to, because if you've got to be able to get your dog back. If I've sent my dog, even Pocker or whatever, and she's searching, and I see something that's dangerous because I haven't seen it before, I might have had a quick look and not noticed something, or she's going towards me and I see anything. No, you've got to come back to me now. I want her to come back every time. I don't want to be like standing there going, come on, and what have you. And it could be a case of, like with Elsa, particularly with general purpose dog, if I've sent her after somebody and something happens that I need, either they've gone across a road or I've seen them jump down a big drop, and I'm thinking, I don't want my dog going down there, she's going to hurt. I need to be able to stop it. I need her to come back. Yeah. Whether that's I've sent her on a property, anything. So for me, that's recall all day long. Yeah.
Lovely.
And they are dogs, so they've got they do have a mind of their own and want to sometimes not do what you want them to do. So it's important that the recall is just solid.
I love it. Everyone's going to love that one, because I know how much they love working on at least off game on recall games. So I know it's going to be a good one. And then tell me what a tough day looks like. What's a tough day? Because I know I was chatting to someone yesterday that they were like, well, when it's going tough, and sometimes you've got to stay like 10 extra hours, you might be on like a longer or a difficult shift. You might be asked to do a bit more. And we do it, it's a lifestyle. This is not a job. We love what we do, and it's a lifestyle. And I can really resonate with that, because I feel that in my own job and life.
I don't necessarily say I find there are tough days are usually when things have gone wrong for me. It's not gone to plan for whatever reason, whether the dog's not done as well as it should have done, or I've let the dog down, or something just hasn't quite gone as I'd like to have gone. That makes it.
And I think that's the same for us. When I've let the dog down, I just feel like when it's the dog, I'm all right with it. When it's me that's let the dog down, God, that's a tough one. And how about a best day? So go on, give me a best day, one of your favourite days in the whole of your police dog handling career.
Probably the day I got the dog handling job.
Yes, the day you got your dog handling job. And I love that. Again, it's like getting to do what we love doing and getting to live what we love I think is a gift. And then the last one I've got from my questions, but I do think I've got a few listener questions. So can you explain how Pocker was actually purchased? Because I know she was purchased in a slightly peculiar way, which I think is cool.
So sometimes when we say deal with some drug dealers or criminals, they have what they call a Proceeds of Crime Act. So certain funds or assets, if they've managed to get them through criminal activity, basically, they can be seized and off the individuals, and that some of that will either be sold off or auctioned off, or the money themselves will be seized. Now, a certain percentage, not all of it, comes back to the police to fund
other cool things.
Other cool things, but it comes back. But the money has to be used to help, however we spend it, to get more drugs or to tackle that criminal activity, if that makes sense. So like with Pocker, she was probably paid for by drugs dealers' money to basically to buy her.
So Pocker's a drugs dog. She's a drugs dog.
So she's been bought to be trained up to be a drugs dog, to take more drugs off the streets.
That must be very frustrating for them. So she's been paid for
by them.
With money that you got by them, via them, and she's going to find more.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. I love that. So I've got some questions here from our super cool people on the Training Academy and listeners of the Sex in a Squirrel podcast. And the first one that I'm going to take is what key attributes are you looking for when you're assessing and selecting a puppy or a dog?
Okay. The main thing is we want something that wants to play. So you're looking for something that's confident and wants to play with toys. So if you go look at some puppies and start wagging something like a tea towel or something like that, do they ignore it and walk off, or do they actually want to interact and play? That's because ultimately, as I keep saying, and I'm repeating it again, it is a game to the dogs. The whole thing is a game. You can't force a dog to want to go tracking. You can't force a dog to go look for drugs. It's got to want to do it because it's going to get a reward for it. And if it doesn't want that reward, well, why is it bothering to? It is a game, so it's got to want to play. Yeah. So puppies are a little bit more difficult than a slightly older dog that we might look at, because obviously, just because we like what we see as a pup doesn't necessarily mean it's going to make it as a police dog. It could be a case of, as it gets older, it doesn't like something in particular, or doesn't
loses it.
Yeah. So you can see stuff initially in a puppy, think, yeah, great, he's going to be a cracking little dog, and then actually as he grows up, he's not. So when you look at that compared to an older dog, let's say a 12 months old, where you've got what you're going to pretty much have, it's probably almost slightly easier to assess the older dog than it is a puppy, if that makes sense.
No, that completely makes sense. So many of these questions we've answered, which is great. One of the questions here was, are police trainers and forces generally becoming more positive in their way of training? And I would 100% want to say that everything I saw in the last few days has been positive and is positive. And I think sometimes there's a public misconception, and it's so easy for people to take that in the wrong way. But I think the dogs that I've watched all love their job and their handlers, and the relationship's impeccable. How would you feel?
Yeah, I totally agree. It is. It's very much a positive reward-based training that is used. It is all for reward. I'm not saying that a dog's never told, oh no, you can't do that, but it's not a case of, oh, we're going to
not be nice to that dog.
I guess, again, saying the same thing. The dog's got to want to do it, not be forced into doing it, because otherwise. Yeah.
And I cannot speak highly enough of all of the training that I've seen from you, from all of the other trainers that I've been able to watch. I think that the training is done in a really cool way. So I think it's fantastic stuff, and I love hearing so many of those bits that we've chatted on. And if you were to think of one question I know we're going to get asked, and it was asked there as well. If you were to think of a dog with toys versus food, your preference, do you have preferences?
I would. For me personally, it's toys all the time. Partly because it's easy to stick a cog in my pocket at a job, or when I'm going out to search, and it is a handful of sausage.
12-hour day with sausage in your pocket.
Not good. And also, particularly say for my drugs dog, if it's food rewarded and there's loads of food on the floor, is he going to self-reward
So
by just,
distinguishing between-
oh, I'm going to have a little nibble there. Well,
What's-its?
what's it? Well, actually, if he's more interested in a ball than food, it's because some of the houses we go in aren't pleasant that we go to search. There's
Oh, don't tell us that.
food and all sorts
Everyone
everywhere.
wants to go. No, I think that makes complete sense.
So for me, there's
As a
no
working-
as a working dog, I much prefer a toy all day long. You can use the same toy over and over again. Having said that, with Pocker, when we started, because she was a pup and young, obviously the ball didn't really mean that much, so it had to start with food initially to build up that. Oh, that means I get a bit of food.
Yeah.
So I'm not.
You can grow it.
Yeah, you can grow it and you can change it. And obviously, as Pocker's grown up and become less interested in food, the ball become, or the Kongs become more interesting. So that's what we've moved to. So
I love it.
So that's neither's wrong, but for me, it's toy.
Well, I cannot wait to show. I'm sure that we'll get to show some of the listeners, whether that's on the Facebook page or within the training academy, some of the videos of us doing a little bit maybe with Pocker and a little bit with a beginner dog that I might bring out. A dog who already likes toys, but that's it. So I can show you a beginner dog in that sense. And I think everyone's going to love listening to that. Thank you so much for
welcome.
joining us again. And I know that from the dog's perspective, I think you've shared their journey really, really well. So remember, audience, stay sexy.
Hey, before you go, have you taken part in the worldwide Sexier Than a Squirrel Challenge?
It's a 25-day online video program, huge energy, amazing community, and over 6,000 people are already taking part.
The only question is, you know where you are today, where do you want to be 25 days from now? Head to absolutedogs.me/sexy.